Hi, everybody. This is Chris Hampton, aka Champ I Am, and I'm so excited to share with you on the principle of faith in famine. Faith in the midst of famine. Now, what does that mean? Okay, faith in famine. Now, when we hear the word faith, immediately you think Chris is going to preach to you. Am I a preacher? Yes, I'm a preacher, but I also believe that faith is a principle more than a religious term. What do I mean by that? Faith is a principle. When you understand what faith is, um, I believe one, it's a principle that when we say principle, anybody can maximize a principle. There are certain laws of the universe that work for us. The universe works for us. Why? Because they've been given us certain principles that work no matter who works it. Here's a biblical example. This: as long as the earth remains, there's seed, time, and harvest. What does that mean? As long as the world is here, the world operates off of what? Seed, time, and harvest. If I plant the right seed in the right time and take care of that seed in the right way, what happens? I can expect a harvest, right? If I'm doing the right thing for the right time in the right season, I can expect a harvest. Laws of principles of giving, right? If you give freely, usually what happens is as you give to others, you can expect the return back to you, right? That's a principle. I know people that are not Christians who are givers, and they walk under that principle of being blessed because they give. So it's not just a church term when we talk about faith. We're talking about, because we are designed to believe, right? We are designed to believe. So let me define faith for you in non-Christian and non-religious terms. So when we talk about faith is when you believe in something so much that you live like it's so, even when you cannot see it, feel it, or experience it. Let's say it again. Faith is when you believe in something so much that even though you believe so much that your actions, it produces action from you, even though you do not see it, experience it, or feel it. Give you a practical example. You go to your job every day and you expect a check at the end of 2 weeks, right? You don't see that check, but you give them 8 to 40 to 60 hours of your life. Why? Because you believe that if I show up for work and I do the time that is allotted for that amount, I'm going to receive this much. You have faith in your resource, that your resource is going to be there. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Now, do I believe faith can be optimized spiritually? Yes. I believe that when we are connected to God, He optimizes our faith so that the return is given to us boldly. But anybody can work off of the law of faith, okay? Because just as a human principle, we will not pursue what we don't believe. I'll give you an example of that. Before 1954, they believed it was impossible for someone to run a mile in under 4 minutes. A mile in under 4 minutes. They said if you run a mile and you try to beat that, your heart won't make it, your body will not last because you're putting your body to the max. It wasn't until 1954 when Roger Bannister broke that record, right? 3 minutes and 59 seconds was the record. 3 minutes, 59 seconds was that record, right? After he broke that, what happened was people tried to break that limit. And then what happened again in 1999, Hitcham L. Jarreau broke that record in 3 minutes, 43 seconds, and broke the record again. What was said to be impossible was broken because someone chose to believe that it was possible. What is happening around you that you are around, and in a famine situation, a lot of times in a famine situation, someone is telling you there's no food, there's no money, there's no opportunity. And if you choose to fall in line with that belief, what happens is your actions end up following that belief. But no matter what happens, what crisis comes into your life, if you position yourself that there's a way, and that there is a way that we can get through this, you change your belief systems to overcome the pressure. You change your belief system to go overcome what is coming at you as an obstacle, and you end up finding a way. Why? Because belief is important. We are designed to believe. We are designed to go after what we believe and make it happen. So what's very important when we're in this situation, when you are in famine situations, you have to set your faith to a higher level of believing. But in order for you to set your faith for a higher level of believing, you have to watch the information that's being given to you. What's crazy in the midst of famine, especially in the world, in the global world that we are seeing today, we are being programmed by all the auditory responses and the news that is on a 24-hour cycle, and it's just programming and programming and programming and programming and programming you, and to a point where it could affect how you see life. That's why you have to be very careful on what you allow to enter into your eye gates and your ear gates. Why? Because they're programming you. They are programming you to believe in such a way that the world is turning chaotic, and it's not building a place of faith in you. It's saying that there's a famine in the land, there's a lack in the land, there's a lack of money, there's a lack of opportunity. But you know what? In the midst of a lack of opportunity, what I'm realizing that in every famine there are people that are succeeding. I've been in sales most of my life. And I'm just turned 50 this year, right? So I've been selling since I'm 17, and every year there is a reason to say that if I'm in sales I should be broke, because there's something going on in the economy every year. But I was always most likely at the top of my game in the selling career. I had a few roller coaster moments, but most of the time I'm selling where I wasn't starving. I was hitting my goals. But there were some people that were looking at it and say, well, people are not buying. I chose to fix my faith in such a way that I believed in so much. There's an opportunity. There's a client out there for me. There's a client out there for me, and I just got to find that client. And then I put the work in. I believed in something so much that it affects how I began to see the world around me. And that's how faith is. And that's how faith works. If you got that faith in you, you'll believe in so much that it shifts how you think. So let me show you. I don't want you to focus on the famine part. I want you to focus on the faith part. So I'm going to show you how to develop your faith practically. All right. It's not really a spiritually woo-woo-y thing that we make it happen. Like you got to be up here spiritually to be able to walk in faith. You walk in faith whether you realize it or not, because it takes the same amount of faith to walk in your dysfunction as it does to walk in the proper way of your overcoming. Right? The same faith that it takes you to overcome is the same faith that you're walking in your dysfunction. Because you believe in your dysfunction so much that it has changed the way that you see the world. It changes the way that you interact with the world. But if you choose to shift your perspective in a different way, you'll find that it can work, that your faith can help you work to live in a better life. And again, I don't want you to see this as a spiritual woo-woo-y thing. I want to give you practical, because I believe God designed us to be practical. I believe in the spiritual side, but I also believe he's practical. He gives us practical steps. And faith is not something that's impractical, because we all live by it, whether you realize it or not. Whether you're believing to be healed from a sickness, or you're believing to be stuck in a rut, it takes the same amount of faith to live both ways. So why can't you make faith work for you? So let me show you what faith requires. Faith requires vision. Faith requires the ability to see forward. I'll say it again. Faith requires the ability to see forward. That means faith is not necessarily living in the now and what's in front of you. Because a lot of times when they say crisis is coming, that is a temporary situation. It is a temporary situation that shakes your life in a way that it makes it feel like your whole life is being shook. But what keeps you going is that faith and that vision that there is a higher purpose to where you are, and that this situation is not going to negate the purpose that you're in. Tragedy and crisis does not negate your purpose. And when you have a vision of a higher purpose of where you're going to, these temporary situations that are in front of you, I call them sight issues. They're temporary issues that are in front of you. You understand that they're only temporary because there's a bigger picture that you're working toward. Then you say, okay, this is not the bigger picture. When I'm living by sight, what happens is sight looks like it's in front of me, but when I'm living by vision, what's before me is bigger than what's in front of me. Then I just realize I just got to get around this. I just got to figure out how to get over this temporary obstacle that's in my way. And when you have vision to see forward, what happens is it builds up your faith to even pursue even further, because you realize where you are is not where you're going to be. If you keep pushing, if you keep living like what you are seeing is real. The problem that most people have with vision is they are so sight driven that they lost vision, and then they get swallowed up in sight issues and they lose hope. I'm helping you today, hopefully through this message, that you shake that off and see the big picture. Say, see the big picture. I see the big picture for my life, and it's not where I'm at right now. And you're starting to live your life in such a way that it affects what you do, what you think, how you spend your money, what you invest your time in, the relationships you have. If the relationships you have are not matching up with the vision that you're seeing, you might have to change those relationships, because that's what faith does. Faith will dictate how you deal with people. Faith requires action. Say it again. Faith requires action. Faith is in the now, not necessarily what's in the known. I'll say it again. Faith is in the now, not necessarily what's in the known. And what I mean by that is you don't know how you're going to get to where you're going to get to. When you see the vision, it's so much bigger in life that it looks bigger than where you are. It looks totally different than where you are. When I started speaking, I had a vision of me being a global speaker, but I was in a one-bedroom apartment in the city. One-bedroom apartment in the city, never knowing that as I continue to put my faith out there and work the speaking industry that I'm in now and getting my name out there, that in 6 years later, I will be speaking to nations. Why? Because my faith wasn't in the one-bedroom apartment. My faith was in the mission and the vision of me seeing and impacting the world globally. What is in your life right now that you are seeing as your vision? It doesn't match where you are, but you see it as if it's in front of you. And now you're preparing your life around there. So faith requires vision, but it requires action. So your faith actions are you're living like it's so. Even though your life might not match up with what you're living to, you know that eventually it's going to catch up, right? So faith requires vision. Faith requires action. Faith requires endurance and patience. Yeah, endurance and patience. I call it the patient strength. Because again, when I was in the one-bedroom apartment, my future did not look like my present. My pockets and my personal economy did not match my future economy. But I had a vision of where I was going to. And I believed that that vision was for me. But I had to be patient and do the discipline of learning the industry, do the discipline of speaking for free until I got paid to speak. I had to go through the process that my mentors were showing me through their examples. And I realized that it didn't happen overnight. It came from a process of me putting in the time and the effort to build muscles in business, to build the entrepreneurship muscles that are holding me up today. I had to be patient, and I had to be willing to endure. I had to be willing to work with little so I could be trusted with much. So faith requires what? Endurance and patience. You got to hold on, because you're in the midst of a famine situation, in the midst of the crisis is in front of your face telling you all the things that you don't have. I remember when I first came into this industry, it was hard because coaches were asking for money, and they were asking for money. And I told you, I didn't have the money. It's not like I had money just in there, but I stayed faithful to what the vision was. That as I continued on in my journey, what happened was the money started to hit my hand, that I can get into the different mentor programs that I had that made me stronger today. right? I didn't give up. Even though my personal economy did not match my future economy, eventually it caught up. That's for somebody, okay? Faith requires resolve. And what I mean by that is that you have to be fully persuaded that what you are pursuing is for you. When you are fully persuaded that what's for you is for you, you cannot be talked out of it. I don't care how crazy it is. Again, that 1 minute, the 4 minute mile record, it might have sounded good because the professors and the doctors were saying how your body would blow up, your heart would blow up if you ever hit that. But it took someone believing what was impossible to many to break that. And what happened is they became the pace setter for other people to realize that that goal could be attained. Could you be the pace setter for your family? Could you be the pace setter that's breaking financial barriers of poverty thinking? That because you made the change, that you were willing to live like it was so, even though you couldn't see it, feel it, experience it, that you changed your whole entire bloodline generation because you choose to live and align your belief system, right? So we said what? Faith requires vision, faith requires action, faith requires endurance and patience, faith requires resolve, and then faith requires a confession. A confession. What is a confession? A confession is a higher version of the affirmation. Affirmations are what we think we can be. So now it's very popular where we talk about affirmations. We like, oh, I want to be this. I want to be this. I can be this. I can be this. But what happens is that affirmation is reprogramming your mind to believe something. And once your mind gets onto that affirmation, the higher form of the affirmation is actually a confession. And a confession is a declaration of what you believe to be so. Right? So when you look at it, it says, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I am unique. I am strong. I am more than an overcomer. I am powerful, right? In my situation. These are affirmation statements to you. Do say it so much that you reprogram your mind, then you actually catch up to your affirmation, catches up, and you actually now declare it with all assurance that you believe this is true, right? And you have to give your vision a voice. I'll give you an example. When I first started speaking, I went to Toastmasters and I said, I went where speakers spoke, and I went to Toastmasters and said, my name is Chris Hampton, and I am a motivational speaker. Now, I didn't have an audience. Nobody was there to hire me. Nobody picked me up. But when I walked in there and I presented myself in the room, I didn't say, my name is Chris Hampton and I aspire to be a motivational speaker. I said, my name is Chris Hampton. I am a motivational speaker. And I lived my life as if it was so, to the point that every time I spoke, they believed I was what I said I was. And when you give your vision a voice, what happens is, what's powerful is that when you start walking in the right type of faith, what happens is that your provision is attracted to your faith declaration. It's attracted to your confession. And you're finding out now that you say, I need a job, and you start to present yourself in the places that you need a job. What happens? I lived my life in such a way that I applied for the job that I didn't even think I was qualified for. But because you showed up and you did all the background work and you did all the education that was needed, right? You showed up. And what happened? Because you gave your vision a voice, another opportunity opened up for you. Okay. So I hope that this is challenging you. Why am I not talking about the famine? Because you need faith to overcome the famine. One of the things that you need to do right now is that you have to look at your life right now and look at how you're believing in yourself right now. And I challenge you to start evaluating these limiting beliefs that are limiting you. Because, as I said earlier, it takes the same amount of faith to live in dysfunction as it does to live in overflow. I'll say it again. It takes the same amount of faith to live in dysfunction than to live in overflow. It takes the same amount of faith to believe in your sickness than it does to live in health. I choose to live in health. I choose to live in wealth. I choose to live in a land of overflowing rather than what I don't have. And I choose to make my faith work for that. Why? Because again, you will not believe. You will not pursue what you do not believe. I'll say that again. You will not pursue what you do not believe. I hope I've challenged you to look at faith differently. I hope I've challenged you to see that you have more in you that's supposed to be coming to you if you would just change how you believe. Faith requires vision. Faith requires action. Faith requires endurance and patience, resolve, and faith requires your confession and your voice. And most of all, faith requires you to believe in something so much that you live like it's so, even when you cannot see it, feel it, or experience it. My name is Chris Hampton, Champ I Am, and I'm showing you how to live in faith in the family.